showing you how to make both a proportional viewfinder and an adjustable viewfinder for the paper sizes that you're going to use. I just posted online these instructions, and I wanted to have a video to go with them. This has 3 pages: how to make and use a viewfinder, proportional and adjustable viewfinders. A viewfinder is simply a framed opening through which one may view a selected portion of the visual field. It functions as a perceptual aid with which you may do the following: select a view of a subject for a composition, establish balance in a composition, establish size relationships between the elements within a composition, maintain accurate proportional relationships within the elements of a composition, and to perceive negative and positive shape relationships in a composition by establishing an edge to the space around the form. The first example shows a proportional viewfinder for a paper that is 9 by 12 or 18 by 24, and it makes a 3-inch by 4-inch viewfinder. That viewfinder is for your larger sheet of paper, which we'll use later. The viewfinder window is proportional to the frame, but we're going to start with the easiest and simplest way to make a proportional viewfinder, and we're going to be using drawing problem 5B to use that proportional viewfinder. So 5B asks you to use one sheet of Bristol board that's 14 by 17 inches. The easiest way out of the 3 that I have listed on this handout is method 2, and that's on page 2 of the handout. Method 2 is what's known as creating a viewfinder by scaling, how to judge proportion by scaling. So for this, you'll need your 1 sheet of Bristol board. And when you remove your Bristol board from the pad of paper, make sure that you mark the side of the Bristol board that was up with a little X, so you know which side of the paper has the most texture to it. You're going to need that texture. Let's see if I've got this one, if I've already marked my little X on this one. No, I didn't. Put a little X so you know this is the back of your sheet. I'm going to use the back of this sheet right now to show you how to make a proportional viewfinder. There are the instructions right next to this setup that I've got here, and hopefully you can see the rest of it. In the kit that you picked up on campus, that small selection of supplies that I gave you was a 3x5 card, a couple of 3x5 cards that we're going to use to make viewfinders with. Three by 5 cards are common. They're a little bit stiffer than your regular paper, and they're easy to use to make a viewfinder. To do this, I'm going to place the card, this 3 by 5 inch card that I'm going to use eventually to make this viewfinder. I'm going to place this down at the bottom, right up against the edge of the back of the sheet of the Bristol board, the back of that sheet of Bristol board. If you need to, you can use tape to tape it down, just so it doesn't shift while you're working with it. And I'm just going to tape this in place with some removable tape. This keeps this from moving around while I'm demonstrating here. I've got the board and the paper laying flat so that I can put some pressure on it. I'm going to take now a 24-inch ruler, and I'm going to place the 0 point of the ruler, which may or not be the end of the ruler, that little mark right on the lower corner of the paper, and run it up to the upper, I'm starting at the lower left, I'm running it up to the upper right of the paper to give me a diagonal. And then I'm going to take, and I generally use a mechanical pencil because a mechanical pencil has a very thin lead, and it doesn't interfere, it doesn't get interfere with the wood casing on the pencil. And I'm going to draw a diagonal line over the top of the card. Whoops, I might have had a problem there. And all the way up and off the back upper right corner. Yeah, my little piece of tape just got over that edge. So I'm going to take that off and fix that little edge with a smaller ruler because I want to find out where this diagonal line exits this piece of paper. Then I'm going to use a triangle, a square, or anything that I know is square, that is a pure square corner. Let me get this if it doesn't have a shadow on it. And I'm going to use this triangle with a 90-degree angle, and I'm going to place that little 90-degree angle there. I could even use another card like this, put it over the top of the first card, and make a line or a mark on the card you've taped down. See if I can line it up really nicely, right where the diagonal passes off the edge of the card. Okay, I know this has got a straight square end. And I now have a leftover piece here when I take my 3x5 card off that is exactly proportional to this larger sheet of paper. If you are going to put tape around the border of your drawing for 5B, that is, you want to put a border, a 1-inch border around the edge of your paper, the proportions will change. Right now, this is proportional, this card is proportional to a 14 by 17 when I go ahead and finish and make the window in it, and I'll show you how to do that. But if you put a 1-inch border around on either side of a 14 by 17 sheet, you have to take 1 inch off of each dimension. So the narrower part of the paper will be 14 inches minus the 2 inches, and that means it'll be 12 inches in its shorter dimension. And this paper is 17. When you take away 2 more borders, 17 minus 2 equals 15 inches. So this will be a 12 by 15 inch area, and you'll need a different diagonal to draw that. So be mindful of that. Make your decision first before you start drawing. I use the back of this paper because now I want to do my drawing on the front of the paper, and this paper has a little bit more texture on one side than the other, and you'll want the more textured side up. The textured side up is the way it is glued into the tablet. So I'll show you what happens with this one if I put another tape corner down, and I can demonstrate what it's like to tape this paper with painter's tape. This is blue low-tack painter's tape. I have a really nice handy dispenser. I've got several of them in the classroom. And what I do is make sure my tape is long enough, and I get directly over the top of it. That's why my head is in the way now. And I'll pull back and show you that I stretch the tape, push it down on the edges, and then smooth the tape out across the surface. Fold those little tape pieces back. And I'm going to do this again to establish my frame of reference. Pulling a bunch of tape off the surface, getting my head in your way to make sure I'm right down over the top of this. Pull that tape apart, across, and now I'm going to draw my new diagonal. I'm going to use a diagonal from, you can see that this is off a little bit down here. I'm going to use my diagonal by placing my little card in the new frame of reference right up against this tape. Get that out of the shadow zone. And if you're feeling comfortable, you can tape these down or just hold them down with your fingers. This time I'm going to make sure that I tape these into places. I'm taping another 3x5 card down here and taking my ruler, placing it right at the corner of the 3x5 card, which is pushed up against the 1-inch tape margin, and I'm pulling it up to the other taped corner. Now, this might not be a big difference, but it is some difference. And the larger the shape is, the larger the format is, say if you were doing a mural, the more you will find that your mural was not exactly going to fit your wall if you didn't plan the scale correctly. So here's my new 12 by 15 inch diagonal. And I'll know it from the old one that was previously there, which was 14 by 17. I'm going to, I'll just tape that back down again. Leave that in place, or I can remove it. And because all I need now is to use something that I know is absolutely square, which could be another 3x5 card. And I put it right up at that corner, right where the previous card was. I'm going to make sure my, yeah, it needs to go up just a little bit. And this is where you put on your reading glasses if you can't see that very well. And I'm just going to trace right along the edge of that with my mechanical pencil. I think I am. And I'm creating little shadows right here, unfortunately. Hopefully you can see that. So here is the beginnings of my new card with a 12 by 15 inch format, which means I've used 1 inch of tape around each of the 4 sides of a 14 by 17 piece of Bristol board. These are all about proportions. So I have 2 options I can use. I want to make sure I mark this one, that this is proportional to 14 by 17 inches. Every time I use the little hole that I'm going to cut in this, I know that it will fit. Everything that I use in my viewfinder will fit here. So this is 14 by 17. And I'll put my initials on here then, because I know I made this one. And I'll have this card to have in my toolkit. That's only a problem if we were in the classroom. You know where your tools are and it won't get lost here. I've got a little metal ruler here, and I use metal rulers for all these measurements because a metal ruler is what I'm going to use to cut with. So the next stage is the same stage for all of these viewfinders that are made on a small card. 3x5 cards are easy to use. They're a little stiffer than regular paper, but the next stage is where you finish off and start cutting. I'm going to be using a cutting board for this because I'm going to be pressing down a little hard. I suggest that you use the back of your tablet for cutting. So here is your Bristol board tablet. You have taken out one sheet of paper. You have marked the back of it with a little X, and you have decided whether you want a border or no border. If you have a border, you must remake your viewfinder, your proportional viewfinder for that. You can also use the back of this as a cutting surface, and that's what I'm going to do now. It'll no longer be a good drawing surface, but it will be a fine cutting surface. So I'll start with this card that is the border, that represents a composition with a border. I'm going to take my ruler. You can even use a smaller ruler this time because a 24-inch ruler is really wiggly. And the only reason that we are using this ruler, I'm going to get a little bit more light on here. The only reason we're using this ruler is because we want a straight line. We do not need to measure anything else. We just need a straight line. So on the 12 by 15, excuse me, and on the 14 by 17, I'm going to put I'm going to make a total of 2 diagonal lines across these. And I want to be pretty sure that my ruler just hits the corner of the card